covering the NFL. NFL Network contributing writer. Joins us for a couple moments as we get set for the Super Bowl right around the corner. Good to touch base with you, my friend. How are things?
Doing well, Rich. Always glad to talk to you, and looking forward to Sunday.
Yeah, it's interesting because we were talking about some of the, the game within the game, and, you look at Peyton Manning, if this is his last hurrah, do you look at Peyton Manning as statistically, arguably, one of the greatest quarterbacks Sunday to Sunday in the NFL, but has faltered in the playoffs, or do you look at him as just flat out one of the all-time greats, regardless of that 500 playoff record?
Yeah, I knew that big butt was coming in here, and that's the difficult thing with him. He's probably the greatest regular season quarterback out there. So many 11-win seasons in his resume, and in the end, no, regular season can only carry you so far, and people look at that losing record in the playoffs, the 1-2 record in the Super Bowl, and I think that kind of discounts him against, let's face it, one of his peers like a Tom Brady.
Yeah, but I'll say this, though, to kind of counter that, Brady's been in a ton of Super Bowls, lost 2 of them to Eli and the Giants, and Brady put up some gaudy numbers as well. I mean, I think you can make the argument Brady's obviously playing at a much higher level for his advanced age, and then you look at Peyton Manning, I just think time is not on his side right now, coupled with the injuries. I think on Sunday, I never liked this expression of managing the game, but that's probably what he's going to have to do. They got to get the ground game going. They got to run the football efficiently. Maybe get Peyton Manning in second and short, couple checkdowns here and there. I don't know how he's going to push the ball down the field, but from a Denver standpoint, what would be 1 or 2 keys to victory for them?
I think the biggest thing, of course, Rich, it's got to be turnovers. We've seen Peyton Manning this season throw more interceptions in his rookie season, and he's got to step it up in terms of reading the field and keeping Josh Norman honest. He cannot let Josh Norman jump patterns, who's a great corner that leads that Panthers secondary. And then the other thing I really point to in this game is I think a running game would really help Peyton Manning. I know C.J. Anderson and Ronnie Hillman are kind of nondescript guys, but they got to find a way to pound the football and keep Luke Kuechly, Thomas Davis from attacking the line of scrimmage.
And then conversely, if you're Denver defensively against the Carolina Panthers and that high-powered offense, and look, I mean, a lot of people think Cam Newton, if there was going to be an MVP of the game, it would be Cam Newton. We've seen 27 out of the 49 Super Bowls. I believe the MVPs have gone to the quarterback. Greg Olsen, certainly a dark horse, but I think defensively for Denver, and just let me know your thoughts on this, you have to make Cam Newton uncomfortable. You got to get you got to get Carolina in 3rd and long, and also too, if Denver can score some points early on in this game and just kind of push Carolina's back against the wall, see how they respond. What's your thoughts on those 2 points?
Yeah, they're all great points. And when I look at this game, this is the matchup that I look at because you have the Denver Broncos defense that is an unsung #1 defense in the National Football League. Von Miller and DeMarcus Ware, these guys can get after anybody. And then their secondary hard-hitting with Harris and Talib. So they match up very well with the Carolina Panthers, and you said it clearly, Rich. They have to get after Cam Newton. They have to hit him. They got to make him physically uncomfortable. Think of the 2007 Giants and what they did to the great Patriots team and Tom Brady. So that kind of playbook is going to have to come out Sunday.
Yeah, and I'm hearing, too, a couple different reports about if Carolina, I should say, if Denver wins the coin toss first, they defer. I mean, do you want to put your defense on the field first and give the ball to Carolina?
Well, I always say defense sets the tone, and they're going to have to go out there and maybe get a turnover early, and I think that really could spur this football team. If they get a turnover, could take it to the house. A special teams touchdown, anything like that will help Denver immensely. Let's face it, on the offensive side of the football, they're just so challenged. I think Thomas is going to have a difficult matchup with Norman, and then maybe could be a star that no one's thinking about. Maybe he makes some plays for Denver.
And who was that, Lloyd? I'm sorry, you broke up. Who was that person that you just mentioned? What player?
Emmanuel Sanders.
Emmanuel Sanders.
The other tight end, the other wide receiver on that team. I really think he can make some plays because Norman is probably going to be shadowing Demaryius Thomas all over the field.
And Thomas has done nothing. He's done absolutely nothing. He's been quiet over the last month. I mean, that's a player that was a comfort zone for Peyton Manning. Who wins the game and why?
Well, Rich, in the end, I just look at this Carolina Panthers team, only one loss in the regular season. And when you see a team at that dominant level, I just think they're going to get a lead, and then their defense is going to provide enough attack that Peyton Manning will turn the football over. So I'm going to go with Carolina 34-24. It sounds high scoring, but I think in the end it's a big defensive play that turns the game for Carolina.
Yeah, I think if the game's in the late 20s, early 30s, Denver's not winning this game. I just don't see their offense is not tailor-made to match Carolina score for score, point for point. Let's swing around, wrap around to some Eagles news, and you see that Howie Roseman's starting to ink all these young players, Curry and Lane Johnson and Ertz and Selleck, and now Fletcher Cox is still out there hoping to maybe get a $100 million contract. It seems as though Roseman has gone back to just being the contract guy, the numbers guy. Whether we can call him de facto personnel guy, so be it. But it seems as though he's making the right signings with this team. We'll talk about the money that they might not have left over down the road. But what are your early impressions of just, I don't want to say this new look Eagles team because they're not, but maybe just a new philosophy with Roseman going back to just handling contracts?
Yes, Richard, I think it's huge that they're pinpointing key young guys and they're saying this is our nucleus and we have to keep them together, particularly that defensive line. Giving Fletcher Cox a contract that he deserves. Vinny Curry now getting the contract. He's also going to get to be able to start and get it after the quarterback in a 4-3 system. Huge changes for the Philadelphia Eagles. I really like what they're doing there. But the draft is going to be key. They're going to have to find young offensive linemen, and then they got to figure out this quarterback situation. So doing a nice job, but incomplete right now.
What do you think they go quarterback in the draft, or you think they re-sign Bradford? And if you think they re-sign him, do you think they franchise tag him, or they give him, say, 5 at 100, which I think would be a monumental mistake?
Yes, and you know, Rich, that's the key thing. Right now they're debating, and I kind of holding their hand close to the vest that they don't want to outbid themselves for Sam Bradford. And when I look at him, and when the Eagles look at him, because people I've talked to around have said, I don't think they believe he's a $20 million quarterback either, and I just don't know if they're willing to go that high. If it gets in a bidding war, I expect the Eagles to step out of it and try to get a young quarterback to develop in the draft and maybe a stopgap guy, whether it's Mark Sanchez or somebody else.
A couple of reports out there online, NFL.com, that DeMarco Murray's not happy in Philadelphia and he's pushing for a potential trade. The bottom line is if you look at the numbers, it just doesn't jive. He's got 4 years left on a 5-year deal. That's $9 million more guaranteed on that $40 million deal. That includes the $9 million. Now you look at a cut. If that's a pre-June 1st cut, I believe the Eagles are looking at $13 million salary cap charge. So from that standpoint, he might want to be traded, but from a money standpoint, that would not be a prudent business move by the Eagles.
Correct, you. And the thing is, you don't want dead money on the cap, whether it's by trade or by cutting a guy. And that's what DeMarco Murray is right now. He's going to be dead money on the cap, and he's going to kill their cap situation for the next year. And we've seen the Raiders get themselves in cap trouble, Cowboys, Redskins, and it has a detrimental effect going about 4 to 5 years out. So the Eagles are stuck with him for better or for worse. Yes, it was Chip Kelly that made that signing, but they're stuck with Murray. I think next year the cap hit is a lot less, and maybe they make some considerations after this season.
1:30 on a Thursday. Lloyd Vance joining us for a couple minutes. We'll take you up to 2 o'clock straight up on a Thursday edition of the Warm-Up, 97.3 ESPN FM, and, of course, live from Chickies and Pete's in EHT. Johnny Manziel, I guess it was only a matter of time. I mean, he just strikes me as a guy that doesn't get it, will never get it. The Browns, I thought the statement was pretty harsh but fair by the Browns. They've given this kid every single solitary opportunity. When they do cut him, are there going to be any suitors out there for Johnny Manziel? I mean, right away people think, the Dallas Cowboys because he's a Texas kid, but or is this situation where they're going to have to do their due diligence and say, look, do we really want to assign this kid who's probably just going to turn around and bite us in the end?
Right, and he's a young man that's got a lot of difficulties ahead of him, and he's made a lot of his own mistakes, and Cleveland said enough's enough, as you were saying. I think the key thing here is when they cut him via the waiving process, a team can either pick up that contract or wait and then pick him up as a street free agent. And I think that's the route that's going to happen in the NFL. I think somebody's going to take a flyer on him as a street free agent to come in there and make good. Obviously, he's going to have to do very well in his interviewing process, and this is his last chance in the National Football League. After that, We're talking commentating and an arena football league.
Oh, come on, commentating. Arena football, you might run around, score 8 touchdowns. Hey, last one for you, Calvin Johnson. Do you believe he is certainly, without a doubt, retired, or do you feel maybe he was just he's mentally he can't go through what he wants to go through to put his body through? So basically, yeah, he's still there, but he just doesn't have that mental toughness anymore to just push his body through the rigors of an NFL season.
Yeah, Q, and this is a new generation in the football player. A lot of them are getting their guaranteed money if they're a superstar, and that's giving them a little cushion. So we saw guys like Patrick Willis, Anthony Davis both leave via early retirement with the San Francisco 49ers. And I think more guys, in looking at their health, particularly their brain health, are going to maybe step away from the game early. So Calvin Johnson, a guy who's done well with his money, comes from a good family. I fully expect him to retire if he says he's going to do it.
You know, it's a great point you bring up because he's still a relatively young man, and we saw the Kit Borland with San Fran. We saw some of these other players, even some low-profile players that maybe the average fan would never heard of, but the diehard fan heard of. You know, if this kind of trend continues, then you have to really say to yourself, wow, can you imagine if, say, in 2 or 3 years, a marquee quarterback, and fill in the blank, whoever that is, decides, I don't want to take the punishment anymore, I've suffered too many concussions, health is more important, and then he starts to walk away. Because Barry Sanders did it at a young age, but the concussion issue was not as prevalent from a media standpoint or out there like it was 15, 20 years ago. And now Calvin Johnson basically coming out saying the body just can't, you know, I don't want to put my body through that punishment. We've heard other players say they're scared of getting concussed. They don't want to deal with the concussions. Can you imagine in a couple of years if a marquee quarterback just decided to hang him up because of fear of concussions or the lingering effects? I mean, that would be a major blow to the NFL.
It would, and it'd be a watershed moment in terms of this fight the NFL is having with their alumni, with former players, all the lawsuits out there. We know that all the repercussions that would go around that. So, you know, it's something the NFL has to take very seriously. I think after the movie Concussion, they're really, you know, they understand they have a big problem, and I think they're trying to fix this, but it's going to take a long time.
All right, my friend, good stuff as always. Great stuff. Enjoy the game on Sunday. We'll recap it next week. Appreciate a couple moments.
All right, look forward to it. Thanks for having me on.
All right, you got it. Lloyd Vance does a great job. Good follow on Twitter as well. Does a good job with the NFL Network as a reporter and writer, and really knows the history of the game.